They thought they could burn a colony to the ground and walk away. They thought no one would care, but they didn't know who they had just crossed. The Galactic Empire slaughtered innocent human children, never realizing they had killed the offspring of the most powerful ruler in the universe, Queen Seraphina of Andromeda. She did not negotiate, she did not threaten, she did not warn, she simply erased them. Planets vanished, fleets turned to dust. The Empire, once invincible, was wiped from history itself. But even as the galaxy trembled, something worse rose from the ashes. The Emperor, thought to be destroyed, returned. No longer bound by flesh, no longer a man, a shadow that could not be killed. Reality itself began to break. Time unraveled. And as the final battle loomed, Seraphina faced an impossible choice. Fight a war that could end existence, or sacrifice everything to stop it. This is not a story of war. This is a story of wrath, of justice, of a mother's vengeance written across the stars. And in the end, when the cosmos whispered her name, it spoke only one thing. She chose to let go. In the end, they didn't die because they were human. They died because they were hers. The flames burned high into the night sky, casting eerie shadows across the smoldering remains of Nova Prime. Once a thriving human colony at the edge of the Milky Way Galactic Empire. Now it was nothing but ashes and echoes, its streets littered with charred debris and the lifeless bodies of those who had called it home. The Empire's elite shock regiments patrolled the ruins, their black armor gleaming under the crimson glow of firelight. The purge had been swift, merciless, another example to the lesser species that the Galactic Empire tolerated no resistance. Among the fallen were children, innocents who had never held a weapon, never known war. Their only crime was being human in the wrong place, at the wrong time. But the soldiers did not know. The admirals did not know. The Emperor himself, seated on his golden throne at the heart of the Empire, did not know that among those slaughtered were the children of a goddess. A queen's secret, a galaxy's doom. Far beyond the reach of the Milky Way, hidden within the luminous spirals of the Andromeda galaxy, sat the celestial throne, a palace forged from the very bones of dead stars. And at its center, seated upon a throne carved from cosmic obsidian, was Queen Seraphina of Andromeda. A being of impossible power, her presence alone was enough to shatter minds, her voice capable of commanding the elements. She was feared by some, worshipped by others, but known by all as a ruler who did not suffer injustice. Yet for all her might, Seraphina had chosen to do something no one expected, to love. She had hidden two of her children, twins, the only light in her eternal existence, on a distant human world. Nova Prime had been safe, remote, a place where they could live without the weight of their mother's name, without the eyes of her enemies constantly upon them. For 10 years, she watched from afar, never interfering, only ensuring their happiness, until now. Until the Empire burned her children alive, until the stars themselves screamed their last breath into the void. And in that moment, as she knelt before the broken remains of their souls, she made a vow. The Empire would not survive. Not a single soldier, not a single ship, not a single world. They would burn, every last one of them. The first tremors of vengeance. The Imperial High Command had no warning. The first sign that something was wrong came 30 hours after the Nova Prime purge, when an Imperial listening station on the Orion Belt was suddenly cut off. No distress signal, no escape pods, just silence. A fleet was dispatched to investigate. What they found was beyond comprehension. The station was still there, floating perfectly intact. But when the team boarded, there was no one inside. No bodies, no blood, no signs of struggle, just the whispers, faint, echoing through the empty halls. "You killed them! She is coming!" Then the lights failed. The screams that followed never made it back to the fleet. A growing fear in the heart of the Empire. By the time the Galactic Senate convened to discuss the disappearances, 5 more colonies had gone dark, entire fleets vanishing into the black. Paranoia spread like wildfire. The Emperor's warlords, men who had never feared anything before, grew uneasy. They had conquered thousands of worlds. They had enslaved entire species. Yet whatever was hunting them now did not play by their rules. Then the first message arrived, a single transmission broadcasted across every Imperial network, every station, every warship. No threats, no demands, just the cold, unshaken voice of a mother who had lost everything. You killed my children. Now I will kill yours. The Empire had faced many enemies before, but this was something else. This was justice. This was wrath, and it had only just begun. The Emperor watched from the Grand Spire of Dominion, the heart of his vast empire, as a holographic map of the Milky Way flickered before him. 5 colonies lost. No distress signals, no wreckage, just silence. His advisors whispered theories, rogue AI, hidden rebel factions, natural cosmic disasters. But deep inside, the Emperor felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Fear. Then, without warning, the lights in the war chamber dimmed. The air turned heavy. A voice, smooth as death itself, echoed from nowhere and everywhere. You killed my children. Now I will kill yours. Then the stars screamed. The Andromeda offensive begins. The first attack came without warning. Draconis Prime, an Imperial stronghold, ceased to exist in less than an hour. At first, the planetary defense systems registered nothing. No incoming fleet, no energy spikes, just silence. Then the sky shattered. A tear in space itself ripped open above the planet, spilling forth a fleet unlike anything the Empire had ever seen. Ships the size of moons, forged from living metal, their surfaces shifting as if they breathed. They did not fire conventional weapons. They did not need to. Where the Andromeda fleet passed, gravity itself warped, crushing entire cities in seconds. The sun of Draconis Prime turned black, and then it was gone, not destroyed, erased, as if it had never existed at all. A desperate response panic gripped the Empire. In less than 3 days, 10 major worlds were annihilated. For the first time, the unstoppable war machine of the Empire hesitated. The Emperor's most ruthless generals, the ones who had wiped out countless civilizations, now found themselves facing an enemy beyond comprehension. Deploy the full armada, barked High Admiral Kylus, his voice edged with unease. Against what? Another officer snapped. We don't even know what we're fighting. But the order was given. 1,000 warships launched from the Imperial core, the greatest fleet ever assembled. They would make their stand at Haven 7, the last line of defense before the Empire's capital. There they would stop this time, whatever it was. There they would show the galaxy that the Empire still ruled. But deep inside, every man in that fleet knew. This was no ordinary war. They were fighting a force that did not play by the rules of reality. The Battle of Haven 7. The Empire's greatest fleet waited on the edge of the system, ready for battle. Their cannons aimed at the void. They watched. They waited. Nothing. Then the stars blinked. Not a fleet. Not a formation. A shadow. It stretched across space, blocking out entire constellations. The void itself cracked open, bleeding light. And from the abyss, they came. Andromeda's judgment. The first wave of Imperial ships opened fire. Nothing hit. Their weapons passed through empty space as if the Andromeda fleet wasn't even there. Then the Empire's ships started vanishing. Not exploding, not burning. Vanishing. One by one, entire warships were simply gone, as if they had been rewritten out of existence. The Imperial commanders screamed orders, but the chaos was absolute. Then Queen Seraphina spoke. Your Emperor sent death to my children. Now I return the favor. The darkness moved. The Empire's capital was next, and no force in the galaxy could stop what was coming. Panic. That was the only word to describe the Imperial core. For centuries, the Empire had ruled with an iron fist. Their fleets had crushed rebellions, enslaved entire worlds, and bent civilizations to their will. They had never known fear, but now fear was all they had left. The Battle of Haven 7 had been a massacre. The largest fleet in Imperial history had ceased to exist in a single night. No debris, no survivors, just absence. And now the Andromeda fleet was advancing toward the Imperial capital itself. A war that should have lasted decades was already at its end. The Emperor's last stand. Inside the Imperial Palace, the Emperor stood alone. His council had abandoned him. His generals had stopped responding. The once great ruler of the Milky Way was nothing more than a desperate man, trapped inside his own fortress. Then the sky burned. Through the great windows of the palace, he saw it, the Andromeda Armada, descending like gods from the heavens. For the first time in his life, he understood. This wasn't just an invasion. This was a reckoning. And then she arrived. The Queen descends. The throne room doors shattered inward, torn apart by an unseen force. And there, standing at the entrance, was Queen Seraphina. She did not wear armor. She did not need it. Her very presence was a storm, her silhouette burning with celestial energy. Her eyes glowed like dying stars. The Emperor, trembling, reached for his weapon. It disintegrated in his hands. Seraphina did not speak at first. She simply watched him, her gaze filled with something far worse than hatred. Cold, silent judgment. Then finally she whispered, "I want you to understand what you've done." With a flick of her wrist, the Emperor fell to his knees. And that's when he saw them, the children, or rather what was left of them, their forms flickering between reality and memory, shadows of what had been stolen from her. They stood before him, watching, silent. "You took them from me." Seraphina's voice was barely above a whisper. "Now I take everything from you," the Emperor screamed. "The end of the Milky Way Empire." From orbit, the Andromeda fleet unleashed its final command. Every Imperial world, every city, every fortress, gone, not destroyed, erased. The history of the Empire was rewritten in real time. Every record of their existence vanished. By the time the sun rose over the ruins of the Imperial capital, there was no Empire left, only silence, only Andromeda. And at the center of it all, the Queen stood alone. Her revenge was complete, but her children were still gone. And so she turned away and disappeared into the void. A goddess without a purpose, a ruler without a throne. Her vengeance had ended, but the stars would never forget. The Empire was gone, not just conquered, not just defeated, erased. Planets that had once gleamed with the arrogance of imperial might were now silent tombs, drifting through space like the corpses of fallen gods. The cities, the strongholds, the monuments to their endless rule, all turned to dust. And yet, something still remained. Scattered among the ruins, survivors drifted in the void. Those too weak, too forgotten, too insignificant for Seraphina's wrath to reach. And for them, the horror was only beginning. A new fear takes root. For generations, the Milky Way had known the Empire as its ruler. Now it had no ruler, no order, no structure, just chaos. Fleets of scavengers descended upon the ruins like vultures, ripping apart what little remained of Imperial technology. But what haunted them most wasn't what they found. It was what they didn't. No records, no history, no sign that the Empire had ever existed at all. It was as if they had been plucked from the fabric of reality itself. Whispers spread across the shattered remnants of the galaxy. The Andromeda Queen rewrote time. She made them vanish, not just from the stars, but from existence itself. We are nothing more than the echoes of a war she already won. And then came the final transmission, a garbled, fragmented signal from where no one knew. But the voice was clear. She's still watching. The fate of Seraphina. In the cold abyss beyond the Andromeda throne world, Queen Seraphina stood alone, her victory hollow. Her empire was stronger than ever. Her enemies had been erased, but no power in the universe, not even hers, could bring back what had been taken from her. And so she drifted. She did not return to her people. She did not celebrate her victory. She simply disappeared. Some say she walks among the stars, a ghost of a goddess, searching for something even she cannot name. Others whisper that she waits, watching over the galaxy, ready to return if anyone dares to challenge the justice she has already written. A warning across the stars. In the ages that followed, the ruins of the Empire became known as the Silent Worlds. No one lived there. No one dared claim them. Not because of what was there, but because of what was not. And on the edge of every galactic map, written in languages old and new, was a single phrase: do not awaken her wrath. Because if the Andromeda Queen ever returned, the next war would not just erase an empire, it would erase reality itself. Time passed. The ruins of the Empire faded into legend. The Silent Worlds remained untouched, cursed remnants of a war fought against something far greater than any fleet, any ruler, any god. But power, no matter how absolute, never goes unchallenged forever. And deep within the Andromeda Galaxy, among the infinite nebulae and dying stars, something stirred, something watched, something waited. A new threat emerges among the lawless worlds, where warlords fought over the bones of the fallen empire. A rumor spread, a whisper of something unnatural. Imperial ruins were disappearing. Entire derelict ships, once floating as grim reminders of the Queen's wrath, were simply gone, not salvaged, not stolen, erased, just like the Empire had been. At first, few paid attention, but then the first Andromeda ship vanished, and then another, until finally an Andromeda war fleet of 5,000 entered a system where an Imperial wreck had last been seen, and none returned. For the first time since her conquest, Queen Seraphina was forced to turn her gaze toward a new mystery: the return of the unseen. On the edges of the Andromeda throne world, where no light had touched for centuries, a distortion appeared, a ripple in space shifting unnaturally, as if something was trying to take shape. Seraphina watched from her high seat of power, her mind reaching beyond mortal perception, trying to understand. Then she heard it, a voice, familiar, impossible. You erase them from existence, but you cannot erase what you do not understand. For the first time in her eternal reign, the Queen of Andromeda hesitated, because she knew that voice. It was the voice of the Empire's last emperor, the man she had personally erased from time itself. And yet, he was still here, somewhere, somehow, and he was coming back. The war that should never have been Seraphina closed her eyes, searching the void with her mind, reaching into the fabric of the cosmos to find the source of the disturbance. What she saw chilled even her immortal soul. Somewhere, beyond the edges of known space, a rift had opened, a door to something unnatural. And from that darkness, the remnants of a shattered empire were rising once more. But they were no longer the same, twisted, altered, no longer bound by time, space, or the laws of the universe. The Empire had become something else, and now they wanted their reality back. The war she had ended was not over. It was only just beginning. The Emperor was gone. Seraphina had erased him. She had erased all of them. And yet, something had survived. Somewhere beyond the fabric of reality itself, the Empire still existed. Not as flesh, not as mortals, but as something else, something far worse. The rift opens. At the edge of the Andromeda Galaxy, space itself began to distort. A black tear in the void, a wound in the universe. From within they emerged, not ships, not men, echoes, shadowed figures of Imperial warships, flickering between existence and nothingness. Their forms twisted, constantly changing, like a memory struggling to hold its shape. And then, the first attack came. A world once loyal to Andromeda vanished overnight, not destroyed, not invaded. It was as if it had never existed. Seraphina felt it. The way reality itself had bent, the way time had rewritten itself. The war she thought she had won was spilling back into her world. And this time, it wasn't bound by the rules of existence. The Emperor returns. As she stood upon her throne, Seraphina heard his voice again. You thought you ended me. You thought you erased us. But you cannot destroy what is no longer alive. A shadow formed before her, shifting like a fractured reflection of time itself. The Emperor of the fallen empire had returned, but he was no longer a man. His form rippled, half in this world, half in the void. His eyes burned with something deeper than hatred, a hunger. You took everything from me, Seraphina. Now I will do the same. And with those words, the war began again. Not just in space, not just in battle, but in the very fabric of reality itself, the unraveling of reality. Across the Andromeda galaxy, worlds began to flicker, not fall, not burn. Flicker, phasing in and out of existence. Erased and rewritten in real time, Seraphina realized the truth. The Emperor's return wasn't just about revenge. He was unmaking the galaxy. Piece by piece, she had ended his empire. Now he would end hers. The very laws of the universe were breaking, and if Seraphina didn't stop him, there would be nothing left. Not for her, not for anyone, not even for time itself. The galaxy was unraveling. Seraphina had witnessed the destruction of empires before. She had ended them herself. But this was something different. This was reality itself breaking apart. The Emperor of the fallen empire was no longer bound by time, space, or mortality. He was something else now, and if she did not stop him, nothing would remain. The Battle of Andromeda Prime. The first wave of attacks came with no warning. Entire star systems flickered like dying embers, vanishing from the timeline as if they had never been. Planets crumbled into dust, not by weapons, not by war, but by something far worse, by erasure, by a force that did not belong in this universe. Seraphina stood at the heart of Andromeda Prime, her throne world, watching as her kingdom disappeared before her eyes. The Andromeda fleets engaged the phantom warships of the Emperor's reborn empire. But how do you fight something that does not exist? Lasers passed through them, missiles detonated in empty space, and then the Andromeda ships began to fade. One by one, her greatest warriors vanished. Not killed, not destroyed, just gone. As if they had never been there at all. Seraphina clenched her fists, her cosmic energy swirling around her like a dying sun. She had to act now, or soon there would be nothing left to fight for. The confrontation. The Emperor's shadowed form materialized before her once more, his figure flickering, half here, half beyond. He was no longer a man. He was a paradox, a wound in the universe. You see it now, don't you? His voice was cold, hollow. This war was never about vengeance. It was about survival. My empire will exist again, because it must exist. The void will not let me die. It will not let me be erased. Seraphina's eyes burned with raw fury. You should not be here. And yet here I am. The Emperor stepped forward. The very ground around him warped, twisting as if reality itself rejected his presence. You thought you erased me, but I became something more. Something you cannot kill. Something that cannot die. You are an abomination, Seraphina whispered. No, the Emperor smiled. I am inevitable. Then he raised his hand, and reality began to break. The final decision. Seraphina realized the truth in that moment. This war was not one she could win, not by force, not by power. She had already destroyed him once, and yet he had returned, and now he was something beyond death. If she fought him here, in this world, the entire galaxy would be consumed. There was only one way, a way she never wanted to take, a way that would mean the end of everything, including herself. There was only one way to win, not by battle, not by war, but by doing what the Emperor could not. Seraphina had spent eternity building her empire, shaping the Andromeda galaxy into a realm of order, strength, and power. Now she had to destroy it. She closed her eyes, feeling the weight of every star, every world, every life that existed under her reign. And with a whisper, she spoke the words that would unmake everything. Andromeda, you are free. The sacrifice of a queen. The moment the words left her lips, the stars of Andromeda flickered. One by one, their light dimmed, not dying, not fading, but breaking free. Her power, the cosmic energy that had shaped an empire, was unraveling. Because Seraphina was the source. Her existence bound Andromeda together, just as the Emperor's unholy form bound his empire's shadowed remains. If she let go, if she released her hold, there would be no war, no battleground, no empire left for the Emperor to reclaim. Only silence and true death. The Emperor's horror. The Emperor felt it immediately, the balance shifting, the fabric of reality collapsing around him. His twisted, unnatural existence depended on something to fight against. Without an empire to conquer, without a reality to consume, he was nothing. He had no purpose. "No!" his voice roared, shaking the stars themselves. "You cannot do this! You cannot leave me with nothing!" But Seraphina's gaze was calm. She stepped forward, her form beginning to glow, burning with a light not of destruction, but of release. "That is where you are wrong. This was never about you." The Emperor lunged forward, his hands outstretched, trying to stop her. But he was already unraveling. His empire, the last remnants of his war, were ceasing to be. His body, if it could even be called that, was no longer stable. And as Seraphina faded into light, she saw something she never thought she would see. For the first time in eternity, the Emperor was afraid. The end of an era. The void swallowed them both. The war never ended, because there was no war left to fight. The Andromeda galaxy, once ruled by an immortal queen, was now free. The remnants of the Empire, once seeking to rise again, were gone. And in their place, a universe untouched by their war, finally able to move forward. The name Seraphina became legend. Some say she still exists, hidden among the stars, watching, waiting, ensuring that no empire will ever rise again. Others say she has gone forever. But one thing is certain, the war that should have destroyed reality itself never happened, because one woman chose to end the cycle, and in doing so, she saved everything. Epilogue, a whisper in the stars. Centuries later, on a distant world, a child looked up at the night sky. She saw a star that was brighter than all the rest. And in the stillness of space, she swore she heard a voice. "You are free." The child smiled, not knowing why, only feeling that, somehow, everything was as it should be,